Pooh Shiesty, the worst criminal / craziest rapper of all time.
He got an ankle monitor on.
Yeah.
In the halfway house. You know he was due to get out of halfway house on the 11th of April.
Yeah.
In 9 days.
Unbelievable.
He got an ankle monitor on in the halfway house, goes to a location on camera. He knows that Gucci Mane security is off-duty police.
Right.
He's been with him forever. And then you have a dude record it. And then the dudes go to the internet showing the jury.
Recorded it to use as blackmail in the future.
So blackmail to what?
Maybe like they felt like Gucci and all the dudes with him were such street dudes that they would have kept the secret, which I don't think so.
There were no street dudes with Gucci.
Right. The cameraman dude that I saw was like a regular ass white kid.
His best friend, regular dude, the off-duty cop.
Pooh Shiesty, the same dude people used to call one of the craziest, most unpredictable names in rap, is sitting in a halfway house with an ankle monitor on, counting down his final days before freedom. And here's the wild part. He was literally just days away from being out. April 11th was right there, almost within reach, and somehow everything still managed to spiral out of control at the worst possible moment. Instead of laying low, instead of moving smart, he shows up on camera at a location while being monitored, fully aware of the eyes already on him. And it gets even messier when you realize the situation he stepped into, because this wasn't just some random environment. He knew exactly who he was around, including the fact that security tied to Gucci Mane wasn't just regular security. We're talking off-duty police, people with real authority, real connections, real consequences. And then things take a turn that nobody expected. Somebody records the whole situation, not just for memories, not just for laughs, but allegedly to hold on to it, like leverage, like something that could be used later if things went left. Now, people online started trying to make sense of that move, some saying maybe they thought everyone involved was too street to ever expose it. But that idea gets shut down real quick when you look at who was actually there. Because from what's being described, it wasn't some tight circle of silent code followers. It was regular people, even a random cameraman just watching everything unfold. And that's when the situation completely explodes. Because now the conversation isn't just about one incident anymore. It's about paperwork, receipts, and things that go way deeper than rumors. Pooh Shiesty gets hit with accusations of cooperating, and not the type people brush off as internet talk. We're talking federal court documents, legal agreements, statements tied to his own defense team. That alone would shake things up, but it doesn't stop there. Now his father enters the conversation, and suddenly people are looking back at history that goes all the way to 2009 with claims of him being a classified informant. So now this isn't just about one man anymore. It starts looking like a pattern, like something bigger, something layered, something the culture wasn't ready to process all at once. And then, just when you think it couldn't get any more chaotic, Gucci Mane himself gets pulled into it. The same person who gave him the cosign, the platform, the push into the mainstream, now being linked to cooperating with investigators in a way that allegedly helped build the case against him. At that point, it stops being a single story and turns into a full-blown collapse from every direction. Every angle you look at, there's something new. Somebody talking, somebody with paperwork, somebody connected to the system in ways nobody expected. And that's why the reaction has been so intense, because this isn't just drama. This hits directly at the core of what street credibility is supposed to mean in rap. To really understand why this feels so heavy, you have to go back before all of this even started. Back when Pooh Shiesty first came out of Memphis, a city known for producing artists who don't play roles, they live what they rap. His entire image was built on that raw authenticity. No filters, no gimmicks, just energy that felt real enough to believe without question. When he linked up with Gucci Mane and stepped into that 1017 machine, it looked like everything was lined up perfectly. One side bringing years of reputation, connections, and industry power. The other side bringing that raw Memphis presence you can't fake. It felt like the start of something big, something that was supposed to last. And for a moment, it actually did. The buzz was real, the streets were backing him, and his name was spreading fast without needing forced promotion. But then 2021 hit, and everything changed overnight. Federal charges, serious ones, pulled him straight into a system where things move differently, where every move matters, and where one mistake can flip your entire story upside down.
Even after everything, the time away, the silence, the setbacks, his name never really disappeared. People kept posting, kept showing love, kept pushing that free Shiesty energy like it was a movement that refused to die. And when October 2025 finally hit and he stepped out, it felt like a moment the streets had been waiting on for years. The craziest part? He didn't come back slow. He came back swinging, dropped new music immediately, and it wasn't weak. It wasn't forced. It hit. The kind of record that had everybody talking again, like he never left. And that matters, because most artists don't get that type of comeback. Usually the hype fades, the sound feels outdated, and people move on. But not here. This felt different. It honestly looked like a comeback story that was about to end the right way, like everything he went through was just part of the journey, and now he was back to take his spot again. The energy was positive, the support was real, and for a second, it felt like things were finally going his way. But that's exactly where everything starts to flip, because while the outside world was celebrating, behind the scenes, moves were already being made that would completely destroy everything. And the timing? That's what makes this whole situation feel unbelievable. 9 days, that's all he had left. 9 days until he was fully free. No ankle monitor, no supervision, no tracking every step. Just 9 days away from walking completely clean. And instead of riding it out, instead of playing it safe, everything crashes right there. Now here's where the story turns from crazy to straight up unbelievable, because in January 2026, things allegedly escalated in a way nobody saw coming. According to federal prosecutors, he wasn't alone either. This involved his father, Lintrell Williams Sr., his close associate, Big Three, and multiple other people moving together. And this wasn't no casual link-up, not a studio vibe, not a music session. What prosecutors are describing is something way more serious, a planned operation, something organized, something intentional. The location? A recording studio in Dallas, but the purpose? Completely different from what it looked like on the surface. The setup was allegedly disguised as a business meeting, Gucci Mane's 1017 label being part of the conversation, contracts being discussed, real industry talk happening on paper. But underneath all that, there was tension building, money issues, disagreements over the deal, frustration over being locked into something he no longer wanted. And instead of handling it the normal way, lawyers, negotiations, contracts, the situation allegedly went in a completely different direction. Prosecutors are saying a crew was assembled, and what happened next turned that studio into something nobody expected. According to the case, Big 30 allegedly blocked the door, physically making sure nobody could leave. Weapons were pulled, including an AK-style pistol, and suddenly this wasn't business anymore. This was pressure, this was control, this was fear taking over the room. They allegedly held Gucci Mane and others at gunpoint, forced one person to sign documents right there, releasing him from his contract while a weapon was pointed at him. Another person reportedly got choked to the point of almost passing out. That's not a dispute anymore. That's chaos. And it didn't stop there, because while all of that was happening, others in the room were getting robbed. Watches, jewelry, cash, everything getting taken right there inside a studio that was supposed to be a place for music. But here's the detail that makes everything hit even harder, the part that makes people question everything. He allegedly had an ankle monitor on the entire time, still under supervision, still being tracked in real time, every move being logged automatically by federal systems. 9 days away from freedom and still stepping into something like that.
And it gets even crazier when you realize he already knew who was around him. He had been in Gucci Mane's circle long enough to understand that his security wasn't just regular security. One of them was an off-duty police officer, not playing a role, not pretending, but a real officer with a badge, a career, and legal responsibility. Which means if anything went down, it wasn't staying quiet. That kind of situation doesn't get handled in the streets. It goes straight into reports, straight into cases, straight into the system. And that's exactly why this whole situation feels so unbelievable, because every single decision, every single move just kept stacking risk on top of risk until everything finally collapsed at once.
And this is where everything goes from messy to completely self-destructive, because it wasn't just what happened inside that studio, it's what happened right after that made the situation impossible to recover from. Pooh Shiesty already knew the environment, he knew the faces, he knew exactly how Gucci Mane's setup was built, but somehow none of that stopped what came next. Because instead of moving quiet, instead of disappearing and letting things cool down, people from the crew allegedly jumped online within hours and started showing everything off. We're talking jewelry, watches, items that were reportedly taken, being posted, flexed, displayed like it was nothing. And that's the moment where things go from a situation to straight-up evidence handed over on a silver platter. Because now it's not just witnesses or claims, it's timestamps, it's visuals, it's proof sitting out in public for anyone to grab. At that point, the case didn't even need to be built. It built itself. Investigators had everything lined up perfectly. The ankle monitor GPS placing him exactly at the studio. Surveillance cameras capturing what went down. A sworn off-duty police officer giving a direct account. Social media posts confirming possession of items. Rental car records. Fingerprints. Everything connecting piece by piece. And once all of that came together, it was only a matter of time before it turned official. On April 2, 2026, federal prosecutors stepped in and charged him, along with his father, Big 30, and multiple others. And the charges? Not light at all. We're talking conspiracy to commit kidnapping and kidnapping itself, the kind of charges that come with life sentences. Think about that for a second. 9 days away from being completely free to now facing the possibility of life in prison. That's not a setback, that's a full collapse in real time. But somehow it still gets even crazier, because once the indictment dropped, the internet did what it always does. It started digging. People went through every line, every detail, trying to connect names, initials, anything they could find. And that's when one detail flipped everything upside down. A victim listed as RD, and almost immediately people started linking that to Radrick Davis, which is the real name of Gucci Mane. Now, once that connection hit the internet, it exploded, because according to the documents, that individual cooperated with law enforcement, identified the people involved, and helped point investigators in the right direction. And just like that, the narrative shifted instantly. Within hours, the same man who was seen as a victim was being labeled something completely different by the culture. Social media went wild. Clips started circulating. Reactions flooded in. People weren't waiting for context. They were reacting off emotion. One moment that went viral showed a prison inmate throwing away the autobiography of Gucci Mane like it meant nothing anymore. That image spread everywhere, and it told you everything about how fast the public had already made up their mind. Even commentators started breaking it down, explaining how multiple people allegedly identified those involved and confirmed their presence at the scene. And that's when things started getting mixed, because now the internet wasn't just reacting, it was running with its own version of the story. So let's slow it down for a second and actually look at what matters, because this is where people started missing key details. First, that off-duty police officer changes everything. This wasn't just a regular witness, this was law enforcement. And when a police officer witnesses something like that, staying silent isn't even an option. Their career, their freedom, everything is on the line if they don't report it. So regardless of what Gucci Mane did or didn't say, that officer was always going to give a full statement. That alone already locks in a huge part of the case. Second, the evidence was already overwhelming. The feds didn't need anyone to snitch to build this. They already had GPS data, video footage, eyewitness accounts, social media proof, rental logs, fingerprints, everything lined up before any statements even came into play.
Legal analysts even made it clear this case doesn't depend on testimony. It's already backed by hard evidence that speaks for itself. And here's the final twist. At the time all of this was unfolding, Gucci Mane hadn't even made a public statement about any of this. No response, no explanation, nothing addressing the situation directly. Which leaves everything sitting in that chaotic space where facts exist, but narratives move faster. And once the internet locks onto a story like this, it doesn't slow down for anything.
And through all of this chaos, complete silence. No statement, no denial, no explanation, nothing. Not about the robbery, not about the accusations, not about the rumors flooding the internet. And let's be real, that kind of silence doesn't just happen randomly. Lawyers step in, they shut everything down, and they tell you straight, say nothing or make it worse. But the internet, it doesn't wait. The streets don't pause for legal strategy. They don't wait for context. They don't care about timing. They saw what they saw, heard what they heard, and made their decision instantly. And it wasn't looking good at all. Then comes the moment where everything gets even deeper, where people start connecting dots that go way back. Enter WAC 100, a name that always pops up when there's drama, paperwork, and receipts involved. During a conversation with DJ Academics, he dropped something that honestly shook the entire conversation. He alleged that Pooh Shiesty's father, Lentrell Williams Sr., wasn't just a regular figure in this story, but someone who had allegedly been working as a government informant since 2009. Not rumors, not whispers, alleged paperwork. According to what was presented, there were claims of a plea agreement tied to multiple charges, with conditions that involved ongoing cooperation with federal authorities. And the language? It pointed directly to continued assistance, not just a one-time situation. They even referenced Federal Guideline 5K 1.1, the type of clause that allows judges to reduce sentences when someone provides substantial help to the government. That's not light. That's the kind of detail that makes people stop and really think about what they're hearing. Now take a step back and really process this, because this is where it hits different. The man who raised him, the person he trusted his entire life, the same person now facing charges alongside him in this case, allegedly had a history that goes all the way back to when he was just a kid. He would have been around 8 or 9 years old at the time, with no way of knowing any of this. Because let's be honest, that's not the kind of thing a father tells his son. And now imagine finding that out while sitting in federal custody already dealing with everything else. That's not pressure, that's a complete mental overload. One commentator even summed it up perfectly, saying, "You're already having the worst day of your life, let's make it worse." And that line stuck with people because it really captured how heavy the situation feels. But the story doesn't stop with his father. It circles right back to him, because these accusations didn't just appear out of nowhere. They've been floating around for years. Back in 2022, when he first caught his case and went through that whole cycle of release and being locked back up again, WAC 100 had already made claims that he himself cooperated with authorities, saying he allegedly entered a proffer agreement, sat down with prosecutors, and broke down details about the case. And if that was true, it could explain why his sentence ended up being lighter than what those charges usually carry. But here's where it turns into a full-blown back and forth, because his legal team didn't stay quiet. His lawyer came out strong and shut everything down immediately, saying those claims were completely false. He made it clear, Pooh Shiesty gave up no one. We never cooperated with the government whatsoever. Our defense was that we blamed the alleged victims. The argument was simple. They claimed the situation was self-defense, saying the victims were the ones trying to rob them first, which is why things escalated. And on top of that, Pooh himself denied everything publicly. He went on Instagram, posted statements, pushed back against the narrative. His mother even stepped in and went directly at WAC 100, turning it into a public back and forth that had everyone picking sides. But then comes one of the most ironic moments in this entire situation, because in January 2026, just days after the studio incident that nobody knew about yet, he posted a video holding up court documents and said, "We kept it G. We're traumatized by this. Y'all better watch y'all mouth when y'all say my name. Never told and never folded." Think about that timing, because while he was making that statement publicly, investigations were already happening behind the scenes, and now that clip hits completely different knowing what came after.
The ripple effect was instant and massive. The entire culture got pulled into this situation, and it didn't stay contained for long. Gucci Mane ended up taking a hit too, whether it was fair or not. Old clips started resurfacing, especially ones where he talked about not cooperating, and they got reposted everywhere with new captions, new context, making it seem like they were directly connected to this situation. But the truth? Those clips weren't even about this case. They were old, unrelated, taken out of context, and repackaged for the moment. And that's how fast narratives move. 1 second it's facts, the next second it's interpretation, and before you know it, the story has already taken on a life of its own.
And once that footage started circulating, there was no going back. It didn't matter that it was old, taken out of context, or repurposed. Once the internet grabbed it, it became the narrative. The gap between what was actually proven and what people believed, completely gone. That's what turned this into a full-blown cultural explosion, because now you've got Gucci Mane's public image clashing with what people think happened, and the reaction moved way faster than any facts could catch up. That viral moment of the Atlanta inmate throwing away the autobiography of Gucci Mane, that wasn't just a clip, that was a statement, a visual that basically showed where a lot of people stood without even saying a word. And now the situation starts pulling in more names, more conversations, more opinions. 21 Savage gets dragged into it just for still showing support, and suddenly people are debating what loyalty even means in a situation like this. At the same time, Big 30, someone who had real chemistry with Pooh Shiesty, someone who could have helped shape a whole era of Memphis rap, is now facing the same federal pressure. That partnership, it might be over before it ever fully reached its peak. And then there's the family side of this, which might honestly be the hardest part to look at, because everything Pooh Shiesty built his identity on, loyalty, silence, code, now gets questioned when his own father's past gets thrown into the spotlight. Imagine building your whole image around a principle, only for people to say that same principle might have been broken before you even understood what it meant. That's deeper than music. That's personal. And then comes the irony that hits the hardest. The music itself, the comeback track, the one that had everybody excited, is now looked at completely differently. A record built around not cooperating, now tied to a situation where cooperation allegations are everywhere. His past case, his father's history, and even the people involved in this incident. That contrast, it's impossible to ignore. But if you zoom out for a second, this story isn't just about one situation. There's something bigger underneath all of this. Because that feeling of being stuck in a bad deal, that's not new. Artists sign contracts early, blow up later, and suddenly realize the terms don't match their value anymore. That's been happening in the industry for decades. The difference is always how you handle it. There are legal ways out, negotiations, buyouts, finishing contracts, and walking away clean. People have done it before without ending up in situations like this. And that's what makes this even harder to process. Because this wasn't someone with no options. This was someone with momentum, support, and a real second chance. Think about it. 4 years gone, comes back, the culture still rocking with him, music hitting, everything lined up, and just 9 days away from full freedom. 9 days. And instead of riding that out, everything allegedly flipped in one moment. Walking into a situation with an ankle monitor still on, knowing the risks, knowing who was around, knowing what could happen. That's not just pressure. That's a mindset where consequences don't even feel real anymore. And the reality is, the system exists to prove that mindset wrong every single time. So now the real question isn't just what happened, it's what this means. At what point does the code stop protecting people and start trapping them instead? Because that idea of never speaking, no matter what, even in life or death situations, doesn't always protect the person following it. Sometimes it protects the people taking advantage of them. And that's why this story hits deeper than just headlines. It's about choices, about environment, about what gets passed down without being questioned, and how close someone can get to changing their life before everything collapses again. The talent was there, the comeback was real, the support was solid. 9 days, that's all it took. So now I want to hear from you. What do you think about all of this? Do you think Gucci Mane actually cooperated, or was the off-duty officer always going to make this case happen no matter what? Do you think the father's history changes how you see everything? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm reading everything.
And if you made it this far, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Because trust me, this story is still unfolding and it's far from over.